Welcome to Woodshop 101. This is episode 133 for August 13th, 2018. On today's show, we're going back to the basics. I'm Jeremy Crawford of the Countryside Workshop. Now I'm joined today by my co-hosts Sam Waddell of Sam Ryan Designs and Drew Short of Rockin' H Woodshop, and our guest host Jay from D Madera ATX over on Instagram. What's going on, everybody?
Hey.
Oh, wait, no.
What's up?
What's going on? How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
I'm tired. I got to be up at 3:30 in the morning, so and I'm playing single father right now, so I'm tired.
You gotta get up at 3:30 in the morning. I was up till 3:30 in the morning last night.
Doing what?
Well, let's just say that my phone was randomly erasing contacts, and like half my client list that I had saved on my phone was gone.
Oh,
and I found out that my iCloud was full. I ran out of space. I had like the 50 gig iCloud, and I've already filled it up. So I had to upgrade to the 200 gig. And what that was causing is the backups on my phone weren't going through. So every night your phone backs up. And if you run out of space on your iCloud, it can't back up. So a lot of the stuff just gets dropped off your phone.
Oh my gosh.
So
Send me your contact, isn't it?
that's why yours erased. And I was like, okay, why is yours gone? And Jeremy's was gone. And like I said, half my client list was gone. And the only way I could get it to fix, because I went ahead and backed it up after I upgraded, and they still didn't come back. So I had to basically reset my phone to default settings like a brand new phone, and then set it back up from an old default back in July when I basically ran out of space. And then I got all my stuff back.
Oh my goodness.
So you lost everything from July to now.
There are some things that actually stayed in iCloud, but not on my iCloud. Or excuse me, stayed in my iCloud drive, but not on my iCloud. Yeah, from the stuff July to now on iCloud, I lost. But everything on iCloud drive was fine. But I don't know. I'm a little nervous. I hope I have everybody now.
That's super scary.
That is really scary. My iCloud just got full.
Yeah.
And I had to do the 1 terabyte.
Holy crap.
Oh my gosh. Delete some pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't keep like pictures and stuff. I don't keep in iCloud. I only keep documents in the iCloud drive.
Swallow.
Yeah.
But we would like to thank going on that note, because I was drinking like I was that one show. That was so funny. We'd like to thank our patrons, John Ramminger, Michael Brindle, Sean McHenry, Carl Mose, Neil Sims, and Eric Rhoten. If you'd like to support the show, you can head over to woodshop101podcast.com/listen, find the show notes for today's episode, and there will be links for small one-time donations and reoccurring donations. If you want to become an awesome patron to our Patreon campaign, then head over to patreon.com/woodshop101. Okay, all of our patrons receive an after show twice a month as a benefit, which is really cool. And the one with, oh my gosh, help me out, guys, last week.
Kevin O'Connor.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connor.
Awesome. So to become a patron, you can listen to that. You can also support our show by buying a Woodshop 101 podcast t-shirt, hoodie, or Rev Marker pack. And we have some new stuff coming to our store. So head over to countrysideworkshop.com/shop for the link.
And those Rev Marker packs there's only like...
Yeah, you guys still doing that $2 sale or whatever it was?
Yeah, there's only like 35 left. Maybe a couple more than that, but there's not many packs left, so...
You need to put me down for like 5 pair, because I want to stock up a little bit.
The guys in my workshop, they were like, "Man, that marker is crazy." And I was like, "It's the best marker they have," because I was always wearing it around my shirt.
Look, this is the best deal you're going to get. You're getting a 2-pack for $2 plus shipping, so you're getting one of the ultra thins and then one of their originals.
We need to get some white ones. That would be good.
Yeah, I think. Cool. Yeah, maybe we get white ones next.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
So, All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the shop. Jay, you want to go first?
Cool. So I was out for a weekend with my back, like just out of nowhere, it just kind of went haywire on me, and I was sidelined, and luckily it was just a weekend. But I just finished up I don't know what else to call it besides a tabletop for like front loading washing machine and dryers, just going over the top of the washing machines.
The folding center.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I built one of those a couple years ago.
Yeah. So that's done, ready to just kind of be dropped off and installed. And then last weekend I made a backdrop that's going to go behind a big screen TV for a family member. And that was just kind of in lieu. We were set up to do like a whole media console and this backdrop, and then, their water heater went out. So it was like, can we just do the backdrop? And I was like, all right, cool. Oh, it's a big paycheck, but all right, cool. So the backdrop is pretty much done. I got to make some French cleats for it. And then they live up in Crawley. It's up by Dallas. So I got to find some time or a weekend to go up there and drop off and install for them. So, but for the most part, it's done. Just throw some French cleats on it and call it a day. But that's about it. Next up, I'm kind of in between clients. I have one that's waiting for some floating shelves, some like big floating shelves. And then I might work on some patio furniture for my sister. So we'll see who kind of filters in next.
Sister.
Yeah. Well, the floating shelves is a bigger paycheck than my sister. So
Yeah, but family's always pushy.
yeah, they are. She's been asking for a while, but so we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. Yeah, that's about it.
The floating shelves are huge, though. They're like 12 feet long.
Yeah, they're massive.
Good God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just a big old wall. She wanted to.
All right, Sam, what do you got going on besides being out of town?
I'm out of town, but I've been working on a coffee table for myself and filming it for YouTube as well. I just finished a headboard, and I'm getting ready to start setting up for welding. So when I get back, we found some awesome stuff at Harbor Freight. We're going to do that. And hopefully I'll be doing my IKEA hack, because I went to like start opening it. I was so excited. I was like in the zone Friday when I had off. And then all of a sudden I was like unpackaging the boxes, and I noticed that it was like box two. I was like, something's wrong. I don't have box one. So I like kept unboxing them, and sure enough, it was two of the exact same box that were just the drawers.
The hack is to make two boxes work.
Yeah. Just a bunch of drawers.
So I was on the phone with them for 2 hours, and I didn't get it figured out. And then finally I emailed them, and we got it figured out. But they didn't respond for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So that will be coming up.
That IKEA didn't respond for like a week and a half?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I know.
But you know what? I remember like several years ago, probably about 6 years ago now, I think, I bought some stuff from IKEA, and then got all the way home, and I couldn't. I think it was something missing or something. You couldn't even call them. Like, it was like, dial this number, and you had to hit like 30 different keys just to try to get a hold of somebody. And then it was on hold forever. And then they're like, oh, we can't do anything. You need to go back to the store. So I had to go back to the store, and like everybody else and their mother is standing at the return line. So I'm literally like sitting here like, I just need to return. Oh no, I just need to pick up another part. It wasn't even there. And I had to wait like 3 hours or something. I probably had 20 hot dogs in those 3 hours. Because I'm like, oh, there's nothing to do but just go get another hot dog.
Some Swedish meatballs.
I was just going to say the meatballs are so good.
Yeah, the meatballs are good. So that's great.
Yeah, I was really frustrated with their customer service. Like, I was really mad, like fuming, because I was on the phone for 20 minutes, got somebody, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll get this taken care of really quickly. And then they were like, we're going to put you on to someone else. And then I was on that for an hour and 40 minutes. And then I finally was like, I'm just wasted 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back from IKEA. And I hung up. I was so mad.
I thought you looked older.
Seriously.
IKEA.
Serious. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm never going to do the hack. And I like said something on Instagram and everyone was like, that's why you don't buy from IKEA and you just make it yourself. I was like, you know what? Now's not the time to tell me what I should have done. It was so funny.
Exactly. And that's not that's not paying the bills. So I'm following where the money goes. If the money says I got to buy something from IKEA and build it, then fine. Boom. How about that?
I know. And poor General Finishes has been waiting. It's coming. Don't worry. It's coming. It's going to be really awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
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 Better.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, what about you? What do you got going on?
Well, my walnut dining table that I've been working on for a client is the construction is completely finished. All I got to do is spray on the pre-cat lacquer tomorrow, and then it'll be ready for delivery next week. Because I finished a little early on that, I did a work-in, and they're just a couple of floating shelves. They're different depths, but they're the same length. They're like 20 inches long. One is 7 3/4 inches deep, and then the other is 5 3/4 inches deep. And they're stained to match the barn doors that I made for him. This is a repeat client. And those will probably be ready for spray along with the table tomorrow because I got them stained today. And then after I get those delivered, next week starts 20 tornado birdhouses.
That is awesome. Is it all from the news show?
About 15 of them, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's so awesome.
Thank you. Let's just hope that it keeps getting more and more referrals. Maybe I can keep making more.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And I will say your walnut table is
Yeah.
I was about to say, are you just speechless?
Hopefully some of those birdhouses turn into bigger builds from clients.
Mm-hmm. I hope so too. But this dining table has proved to be, I wouldn't say a challenge, but I mean the whole design, I was just kind of throwing it together in SketchUp, and I was using those just curved corbels that terminate top and bottom, and then I thought, well, I wonder if I just carry them down all the way down to the bottom to where it's one continuous upright, so it gives that post a little more 3-dimension, and I really like the way that turned out.
It looks really good. It's funny because my grandpa built something similar on SketchUp for me, and it was your same concept with bringing the corbel all the way down, but then we had an extra base in between. Like, so then the corbel came down, then another base that went down, and then down. I should send it to you. And I wanted that client to want that table so bad, but then she never ended up building with me. I was like, oh. That's like the worst when you're like really excited about a project and then they don't sign the contract.
I know that's kind of how it was with this table, because I was like, man, this is going to be out of solid walnut, and I don't know if she's going to be able to afford it or not. Because I only allotted, I think, 4 days of build time, and that's 8-hour 4 days, and that's about what I racked up. I think I have about 2 or 3 hours, give or take, extra. But you know, it came out to about $2,000 for the table, and the table's not exactly super big. I think it's only like it's 30 by 64. So it's not a huge table, but I mean, that's a lot of walnut.
Yeah, that's the same size as my walnut table, but I have an issue with my walnut table.
I do like the splines though, because I like breadboard ends, but I'm not fond of the trouble that you get with breadboard ends if you don't do it exactly right with humidity changes. So I pitched the exposed splines idea to her, and she really liked that. So I threw in the mahogany splines, and I'm really anxious to see what that pre-cat lacquer does as far as the contrast between the two when I go to spray it.
I'm sure it will be really pretty. Do you want to know my issue with my table?
I want to know what I didn't know if you were going to volunteer the issue or not, but
so it's like 1 inch too tall.
Oh, Wait, the one you just delivered? So how tall did you make it?
So it's like around 31. She wanted it 30, and I made a huge mistake. Grandpa wasn't in the shop like at all. I'm sure he would have caught it. But I made a mistake where the piece that we put on underneath the table is like an undermount. So it's glued to the table. It's fine with expansion and contraction. We have elongated holes, everything. But then it makes it so that the table can come apart and we can deliver it. And then it's easy for them to take it apart. So anyways, I made the legs exactly what they should have been, but I didn't allow for that piece that's going to make it now an inch taller, because I thought it was just going to go directly to the tabletop. But instead, my leg goes to that piece that mimics the bigger piece on the top. So I have on the bottom, I have one long piece and then a curve and then another piece and a curve. And then I have my post on the top. So the smaller piece goes first, and then that second piece is attached to the table underneath that stays there. So it mimics the same thing. Well, yeah, I count for that. So it's an inch taller.
Oh.
And I sat at it, and let me tell you, it's perfectly fine. I've done 4 or 5 tables at it being around 31, and it was fine. But the thing is that if she has chairs can vary in height by from 17, 18, 19 inches. So her chairs are on the lower side. So then it does make it just kind of it really hit me right here. And she's shorter than me. And I was like, so I have to build the legs all over again. There's no way I can take it apart because it's all glued. And so
you have to build the whole base over again. Oh, yuck.
For an inch. Yeah.
For 1 inch. Okay, for those of you guys that are listening, because I know that there may be some out there, there are standard dimensions for tables and chairs, and you can Google these things if you're ever contracted to build something like this. A standard table height is roughly around 29 to 30 inches, mainly because a standard chair height or bench height is about 18 inches. Mm-hmm. And you want to try and stay around those measurements because you might have a client like Sam who can tell a difference of 1 inch. Because I had one with that metal wood desk. He wanted it exactly, no give or take. This dude was within a quarter of an inch. He could feel it. And he wanted it exactly 29 inches. So
but you have to pay attention to that, because if they're trying to use antique chairs, they went to the thrift store or whatever, and they got antique chairs, older chairs are 17 inches because the dimensions used to be 17, and a standard height would be a 28-inch table. And you can feel the difference.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and a good example is we have here an older table from my father-in-law, and his table, it's 28 inches, but we have newer chairs that sit at 18 inches, and you can definitely feel like you sit so much higher than the table.
Well, I asked Sam, did the lady take a tape measure to it, to find the inch? And
I bet she's one of those picky clients that just sat at that table and was like, this just does not feel right.
She was coming from a 28 3/4, 29 inch table. So then it is a lot bigger. And I will say, even if it's not, if your clients have older chairs or even newer chairs, look at them, because I know I just did a client and her chairs were 19 and they were from Pottery Barn. I've also seen some that are 19 from Restoration Hardware. So ask your clients what they are, because then those clients actually wanted it 31 because it sat perfect. So definitely, if you're listening, there's specs on everything and they always change in the interior design world. That's why I didn't go commercial, because everything changes all the time. So definitely measure your client's chairs. Yeah. And she didn't those chairs. She just ordered them, and I was like, okay, can you send me the specs? So, but I mean,
at least I don't have to bleep that.
It's definitely my fault. It's my fault. I owned up to it. I said, I'm sorry, it's my mistake. I will remake them. And then I got in the car and cried and called Jay. I have to rebuild the legs.
Yeah. So here's I don't know exactly the work you put into it, but is it a possibility that you completely rebuild the whole table for her, and you take the table that's already built with the base and try to sell that for a reduction in price, and that way you're at least
make your money back a little.
So you're at least offsetting the cost of the materials that you're going to have to purchase.
So she loves, like, she legit picked out the walnut pieces. So there's no way I can take that top from her because she legit picked the pieces out. Like, I sent her the pictures and everything. She was so happy, like, she couldn't contain herself. And then, like, I totally just, like, burst her bubble by it being too tall. But I'm going to build a table with those legs and then try and sell it or keep it for us or something. So those legs will be reused, and I'll just rebuild them. And it really wasn't that much in wood, 100 maybe. But it's just like the time and effort putting it in. Yeah. And I would have been really upset if she was like, oh, I don't like the tabletop, because like Drew said earlier, breadboard ends are a pain in the butt because you have to get them like really well so that when it's humid that they don't split. And like to me, that is like where I put in the most like work. So I would have been really upset if she said I didn't like everything. But she was like, she was so excited. And then the floating shelves looked so good. And then it was like a couple hours later and she was like, can you come back over later? And I just need to run something by you. I was like, yeah, sure. And she was like, I think it's an inch too tall. I really hate doing this to you. I mean, she was really awesome about it. So my mistake, make sure before you glue everything, check your height real quick.
Are you not able to shorten your posts and just cut the top corbel sections off and then redo it?
That's what I was wondering if I could do that, but the corbels are like screwed, glued, and then the holes are plugged. So I mean, I would have to like really F them up. And then do I try and like mess them up and try it? Or do I take those legs, build a top for it, and then try and sell it?
And advertise it. Must have 19-inch chairs.
Yeah. But then I was thinking modern I could probably I could make it work.
Yeah.
Even if it was just for like us. But yeah.
Yeah.
I
was more upset about the time and her effort. You know, she was like, the cost. And I was like, yeah, but you're forgetting about your time and your value and how much it costs to redo a whole base. Because I was upset. So I was like, no, it's fine. Just tell her to work with it. It's 1 inch. She's going to get over it. Like, give her like 3 weeks.
Tell her to sit on a phone book.
Yeah.
You got a yellow pages you can have. Good, take that.
Somebody said in our group, put like a cushion under your butt or something. Sit on a seat cushion.
Sit on a donut. You're fine.
But then I get a lot of jobs in that area. So then I was like, you know what? I better just do it because...
Yeah,
I can see the referrals coming from that neighborhood going, well, she told me to sit on a donut.
I know, right? Or put the foam pads under your chairs, bring them up a little bit.
She delivered yellow pages to me. I wasn't sure what to use these for.
So a general rule of thumb for everybody that's listening is whatever their chairs are, since antique chairs vary from modern chairs, whatever their chair height is from where they sit, where their butt is planted, add 12 more inches to that measurement, and that should be your tabletop height.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm mid-build deep into the split top Roubo. It's ridiculously heavy. I only have half of the top glued up. That's 4 inches thick, and right now it's about 66 to 68 inches long, and it's 12 inches wide. And the thing, that one half of the top easily weighs 200 pounds, if not more.
And it's construction grade, right?
So it's designed to be built with construction grade. The plans are designed to be built with like 16 2x8s, I think. I'm actually building mine out of Malaysian acacia because I can get it locally. Like literally, I get 16.5 inch wide boards, 17 feet long, 1.5 thick for about $150 a piece.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So
What is that? What does that figure to in board feet? Do you know? Did you figure it out?
No, I have no idea, but it's something ridiculous, I'm sure. It's like super cheap. So like what it is this guy works for Boeing, and they ship in like airplane parts that weigh like 30,000 pounds, and this Malaysian acacia is built into a pallet. And so they're one use. They're giant one use pallets. So all he does is there's some bolts in it. He pulls the bolts out, and then he can take all the wood and he sells it. And so I get a bunch of different stuff from him in different dimensions. But this is like the third time I think I've bought a big bundle from him, and he'll cut it to the dimensions that I need it, because coming in a 17-foot stick, like trying to put that in your shop takes up the whole like front to back. So he'll cut it down to what I need it for and deliver it to me for free. So I keep going back to him.
That's really nice.
So, but yeah, like it's ridiculously heavy, and so I'll probably do the other glue up the other top tomorrow, and I'm probably a quarter of the way through my gallon of glue. So I have people like determined, but see that's the last thing I have to glue up is the other top. So I might be about halfway through when I'm done, because I already have all the legs glued up, all the aprons. So after that, it's just a little bit of glue to connect, like all the tenons and stuff. But yeah, it's designed. It'll be all loose, like all the legs components to the aprons will be done with loose tenon joinery. I'll use dominoes because I have it, but you can use dowels, or you can make your own loose tenon joinery, and then those will be reinforced with the pocket holes, but like the HD pocket holes. So I think they're like 2.5 inches or 3 inches or something bigger around. But I'm doing this. It's all a design just to show people like, hey, you can have that awesome like bench crafted split top Roubo type workbench, like beautiful, hefty, but you can do it on a budget from the home center, or wherever you go get your wood. You don't have to use mortise and tenon. You don't have to use dovetails or all this other stuff. You can use it very basic with stuff that you can go get at the home center. So it's interesting, and it's going to be interesting once I put it together to actually see how sturdy it is. I'm hoping it's as sturdy as what I built it to be. So we'll see. But on a more positive note, been a long time coming.
You finished the dining table.
Dining room table's done.
I saw that.
It's done.
Exciting.
I finished about 3 days ago. I finished spraying it, and I got it pulled back in the house, and there it goes. And then it doesn't feel near as good as what I thought it was. Like I was like, oh man,
waiting to do it for forever.
Yeah, no, like I'm kind of disappointed. I'm just like, oh man, like I thought I'd feel this like huge sigh of relief, and I don't. But maybe it's because I have so many other things like building up in the shop after it, and I'm getting like ridiculously busy. I have like today I picked up a dining room chair that I have no idea how they split. Like they literally like the leg split in half like this, like the length of the chair. And it's a clean break, so it's going to be an easy fix. But I'm like, I have no idea how you did that. Like, literally, how did you break a leg right down the middle? And then I have a giant, like, 3-foot ship's wheel shadow box to build when I get back. Or to build, to say repair. I don't even know, like... So the customer, my client... bought it from somebody else, has been waiting 12 months. This is like a horrible contractor story. Been waiting 12 months for this. There was excuse after excuse why, like, you know, something flew off the lathe and hit me in the head, so I was out for like a month, and then like all these excuses. as to why it's not done. Well, if they finally ship it, it shows up in pieces. They paid like $400 or $500 for this like junky thing. It shows up in pieces. So I go over today to look at it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I can fix it. I start looking at it, and it's like the plexiglass window is like, it looks like he took like a jigsaw and was just like, and it doesn't even fit in the hole. The oak that's made out of red oak was not sanded, has no finish on it. All the little like spokes on the ship's wheel have fallen off. I'm just like, dude, like, this is ridiculous. How can any craftsman like put that together, especially for like somebody's like out of the service, military, police, whatever, their retirement? Like, somebody's coming to you because they want that for retirement, to display all their like 20 years or 30 years of awards, and you give them that.
Yeah.
And it's a special thing.
Yeah. Like,
show off, not show off, but
I was like, yeah, I'll try to repair it, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up rebuilding most of it.
Yeah. It sounds like.
they
So
should get their money back.
What's that?
They should ask for their money back.
Yeah, this guy's just like disappeared now. They've tried.
That's crazy.
So that's what's going on in my shop. It's been busy. It's gonna be busy. I'll be out of town next week, which I'm looking forward to. I'm doing stuff for the Coast Guard down in Jacksonville next week, but I really start thinking about all the stuff I have in the shop, and I'm like, oh, things are just building up, and I'm losing time, and I hate taking a week off.
I seem to remember a New Year's resolution, Jeremy, about not taking too much on.
Yeah, too much extracurricular, because this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted the time to build, like, to dedicate to the business and do that stuff. Like, all these extra, I'm going to help you out with this and do this. Like, I didn't want to do that. And I've
so that's your extracurricular stuff outside the business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've seriously stepped back from just about everything that I've been doing besides Coast Guard, podcasts, and my business. And I think it's done pretty good, because I think we got good things coming for the podcast, and we got good things coming for my business. So I'm excited.
I think we're all doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo-hoo. Speaking of long, I forgot to mention, I just built a 114-inch mantle with
I saw that thing.
And I did all miters on them so that it just folded up. I was very proud. Gramps was out of town, and he came back and he was like, "Oh, your mantle looks really good." I was like,
"You said it's 140 inches?"
114. It's not
114, so it's not 115.
No.
It's 114.
I got this one dead on.
She probably took that tape measure and went, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. It's because that magical fairy came and changed those numbers.
Stupid fairy changed my plans on the Walnut Table. But it's okay. The mantle turned out great. I gave that as a big win. Where's
that going?
So it's going in a family room.
A giant fireplace.
Seriously, the fireplace is 100 inches wide. So we wanted it to come up like over a little bit. It's two fireplaces next to each other. It's like an old school. Actually, it's not really two fireplaces. It's a big fireplace.
I have just one. Jesus, I want two fireplaces.
It's a hole to hold the wood.
Oh, okay.
In the wall, but it's made in with the.
Jeremy's like hoity-toity.
Yeah.
But it's gonna.
I've got a fireplace that doesn't even heat up my house very well, but sure.
Let alone two of them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen mine on in 4 years. Don't even know if it works or not.
Well, I mean, when you live in Texas, it doesn't get cold. When you live in South Carolina and you don't expect it to snow 12 inches, and it does. You got to build a fire.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, it sounds like we've all been very busy, which is a good thing. You always want to be behind. But we've got a good topic, and this is basically how the podcast what the podcast was based around. I mean, the name of our show is Woodshop 101, and that is just like a back to basics kind of name, and that's kind of what we're going back to on this show. We're just going to kind of get back to basics for some of the people that are new to woodworking, so if they want to know like what types of saw blades to start using, what kind of glues to use, tools to start out with, things of that nature. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We get a lot of questions when it comes to first starting out in a shop, like what types of tools that you should purchase without breaking the bank kind of thing, especially if you're in a small, like maybe a one-car garage, or maybe like Sam Ramondi's working out of like a 8x10 or a 10x10 shed.
A shed, yeah.
So, I mean, not everybody's got the garage to work out of, so you kind of have to work efficiently as well as effectively in a small space. So those are the kind of questions that we get a lot, is what kind of tools would you buy to start out? Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll start with Jay and Sam, since you guys are in the same room together. This is going to be easy. When you first start out, what kind of tools did you guys get? And Sam, this doesn't count with you because Gramps already had tools. So
this is different.
But I did start with a drill. He told me that's like the number one with the impact driver.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I got that was kind of a gift from my dad was a Chicago electric miter saw. And she worked like a charm for what I needed for a while until I upgraded to the Hitachi. But I think the miter saw, you guys talked about it, I think on your most recent live. I think that was a question you guys had as well, right? As we talked about, miter saws, drills, and if you can get a table saw, or if you can get, I had a belt sander. I used a belt sander for the longest time because I had a group of orbital sanders that were all broken. I just used my Ryobi belt sander for the longest, and then I just hand sanded everything if I needed to get finer than that. But yeah, definitely I would go with a nice miter saw to start off with, if you don't have space for a table saw.
Yeah, mine I would say is a drill, because me and Grandpa get this question all the time. What do you think? What would you recommend? And I definitely would recommend getting a good drill, a nice drill with the impact driver. And then after that, like we said on the show the other night, if you don't have space for like a big tool, definitely get like a good circular saw. Because you can do a lot of if you're working out of a tiny shop, you can go for a while with a circular saw. Yeah. And definitely, I think an orbital sander. And then from there, in like terms of bigger tools, if you can go with a table saw, I'd go with a table saw. That thing is awesome. And then like that's your main thing. Like you can do your rough cuts on there. You can do your final cuts on there. So then because you don't have a big shop, then you don't need all the other tools that kind of do the same thing. You can cut miters on there. You can do, if you can do a table saw, go ahead and do a table saw. And then from there, we always say like a bandsaw, so you can resaw stuff, which I know you can somewhat do it on the table saw. Yeah. And then from there, we set a planer. Those would be, or a joiner. Those would be. If you're going to
the planer.
Go ahead, Jay.
The planer was a huge addition. That was after the Hitachi miter saw. I got a planer, the rigid planer after that, and it's night and day the time that it takes to, because I was using a belt sander to try to level things out and to sand everything, and then hand sanding everything. I mean, it would take me days to sand a piece, whereas now I can just run it through the planer in minutes, and it's almost finished ready. So yeah, a planer would be huge, but I would probably put that second tier on my list, especially if I'm just starting out. You gotta earn some calluses, in my book. Get some sand calluses on there. You gotta earn it a little bit, but yeah.
Well, Sam, one of the questions that we had on our live was the most underrated tool that you use the most, and we were kind of stumped on that. And after a while, I got to thinking, people are always concerned, especially when it comes to table saws, about needing a top of the line or a high dollar cabinet saw. And that's the underrated part that I was thinking of, because I've got a contractor saw. I've turned it into a cabinet saw, and I use it probably 85% of the time in my shop. It is a huge workhorse, and I didn't spend thousands of dollars on a high-end cabinet saw. This contractor saw is the first stepping stone to making higher-end furniture. Now, I'm not saying you can't make it with a contractor saw, or to me, a job site saw, but they're so lightweight, you really have to be careful with them, especially with large pieces and cutting plywood. But if you can afford a table saw, a contractor saw is just as good as a cabinet saw, in my opinion, for learning how to make fine furniture. Now, there are certain brands that are better than others, but you just kind of have to do your homework. But that is probably the most underrated tool that I have in my shop that people just don't understand, that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on.
When she first visited and she walked through my shop and she saw my little skill saw, table saw, she said, "You milled up all that red oak on that thing?" I was like, "Yep, sure did." I mean, I have a roller set up. I was as safe as I could be, but it was dicey. But I mean, you can get stuff done. It doesn't have to be a saw stop. You don't have to go Laguna. Like, you can get stuff done, or Powermatic. I mean, you can get stuff done on a table saw.
But I will say, if you have the space, and I mean, obviously, if you're a beginner, you don't want to splurge too much. But if you are starting a business like Drew, you have the perfect setup for what you did. Yeah. And I don't think we could have gotten away with what you did in our shop just because of the way that it is. Yours is perfect with the square. I love your setup because you're in the middle is your main area, and you can fit pieces on there. It would be so much easier for us because with cutting that mantle, I had to move our second bandsaw. We had to put it on rollers and move it. So if you have a garage, go watch Drew's videos, because that would be perfect to set up your shop for a business and trying to, like you said, build more high-end fine furniture. But if you have a basement and you can get a nicer, I think splurging is okay if you're investing in your business. Like we've talked about millions of other times. And you don't have to get the best top of the line. My grandpa researches everything, even the cheaper things. He researches everything.
You got it.
It's okay.
And he makes up his mind. So I definitely, it just depends on your space, what space you have and what you're working with. If you're working with a garage, go look at Drew's stuff, because that is perfect. If
you're a DIY person starting out the gate, don't go spend. Don't drop $3,500 on a saw stop cabinet saw.
But that rigid one is nice for $500.
Yeah.
That you could keep that for a while and get most things done, and it doesn't take up that much room. So there's so much. I feel like we could do a whole episode on just one tool.
Starting a shop.
Yeah. No, I mean, job site saws definitely have a limitation. It just depends on how soon you're going to hit that limitation. I was on Donnie's podcast, Green Woodworker podcast, not too long ago, several weeks ago, and the best advice that I said on that was, I'm not an advocate for buying your last tool first, but I'm also not an advocate of going in and buying that lower budget tool. If you can spend $300 on a Ryobi table saw, I don't know if these are the right prices. I'm just pulling this out. But if you say you spend $300, well, that next one, right, that rigid contractor saw is $599. If you can say, hey, let me hold off 2 or 3 weeks or a month and buy that rigid, then do that, because you're going to quickly outgrow the limitations, or it's going to make it so tedious that you're not going to enjoy it, of a job site saw. I still have a job site saw, and I hate using the thing. It's loud, it vibrates, it's out of square now, but I'm just not in the place where I can afford the saw I want. and I still do good things on it. I'm building a Roubo workbench on a contractor saw, right? That's not many people do that. But the thing is I've outgrown it. The power, most job site saws you don't ever see with more than about an inch, a 1.25 horsepower motor on it, and they usually don't have a long enough arbor for dados. So there's definitely those limitations, and it takes longer to do things. So if you could afford to like wait a little bit and collect up those couple extra $100 to get a contractor saw, that's where I recommend you start.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I mean, I'm not if you can't afford to do that, then great, grab that job site saw. But if you can do it, do it.
Yeah, and if you're like contracting work out, write in like $50 to $100 for something that you're going to need. Make it your like shopping. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we got the table saw basics or even the circular saw, what types of blades would you guys recommend for starting out? Because you guys know that saw blades can range anywhere between $20 up to $130.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any good experience with, say, the more affordable blades that you've maybe tried out that one works better than the other?
I haven't had anything specific for me. I got my miter saw from a contractor here in Austin, and he gave me a couple of blades. He gave me a rough blade and a more fine-tuned blade. And I think it's 80 tooth or maybe 100 tooth. It's great, but it was night and day from my little Chicago Electric, so it's hard for me to compare anything to that. But I mean, I'm more of a budget guy, so I don't generally look in the direction of the $100 blades. If I'm shopping for blades, I'm more in the $40 range. But I need to buy some new blades.
Yeah, and see, you could write this into your contract. We wrote in blades because we needed a new blade for melamine. And a client wanted a massive thing made out of melamine. And that blade was, I think, like $80 to $90. Yeah. I mean, there was cheaper ones, but I didn't want the melamine to crack. So therefore, you say, well, I don't have that blade, write it into your contract because you need that for that job to be built. But I don't know. And I've been spoiled, but I use the same blade, and I think my grandpa has had it for forever. We just got those CMT blades, and those were $80, and it was buy one, get one free. And we got two. That one was crosscut, and then one was a ripping blade, and they're both great. But before that, we had the Forest 2 on there, and I use that thing for everything. It's a combo blade. It's great. And we just clean it and then get it sharpened for like $5. And just continue to use it. And my grandpa, we did have a cheap blade that one of the tooth flew off of the blade. And if someone was like in the direction, you would have gotten like impaled. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we're throwing out some terms here: combo blades, ripping blades, crosscut blades, melamine blades. I mean, I know that there's people that have gone shopping for circular saw blades or table saw blades, and they see all these different tooth counts. They see crosscuts. They see rips. I mean, let's kind of break it down what these blades do, because that's almost like going shopping for lumber at a hardwood dealer. I mean, you're going to get all of these terms thrown at you, and you just don't know what they mean.
Well, I would say we stick in the 10-inch category to start off, because most blades they're determined crosscut rip based off of the tooth count. Once you step down into that circular saw, 7 1/4 size, they still have ripping and crosscut, but the tooth count is completely different to determine which one's which. So I'd say with a 10-inch blade, which is pretty common for most table, and in fact every table saw I know of. I'm sure there's ones out there that don't have a 10-inch blade. And then most circular or most miter saws are 10 inches. And even the ones that are 12 inches usually stick within the same tooth count configuration. So
So, and people, I mean, they don't know when they should be changing blades out to make certain kinds of cuts. So, I mean, you're going to be starting out basically at a 40-tooth count blade for ripping. I mean, and the lesser teeth that you have, the more aggressive it's going to cut into your wood, and the more sawdust ejection you're going to have. So when you're ripping things like 2x4s and some other long pieces that you just need to cut down to a less wide length or width rather, a ripping blade like that, a 40-tooth count blade, will get the job done fast. You won't feel like you're fighting the blade, pushing it through.
Really, most saws from the manufacturer will usually come with about a 24 tooth. So
very aggressive.
Yeah, so a 24 tooth to about a 40 tooth. Yeah, that's would be about a ripping blade.
Yeah,
it'd be like butter if you went from a 24 to a 40. It'd be pretty nice.
Yeah. So I know mine came with a 24 tooth, and then so we have the ripping blade, and so what about crosscut? That's
crosscut is a big hot button for a lot of people because they complain about tear out.
Right.
So if you're not into changing blades so much for every kind of different cut, a combo blade would probably be a good way to go. And depending on the manufacturer and how the teeth are aligned on the blade gets you different results. But a combo blade is roughly about a 50 tooth count, maybe up to 60. It's kind of rare that you might see that, but anywhere between 50 and 60 for a combo blade. The teeth are a little more closer together because there are more of them. But because there's more teeth, there's more cutting surface area hitting the wood and causing less tear out. So that will work for ripping, and it will work for cross-cutting.
I would say that would be your best if you wanted to start with like a nicer blade, get a combo blade. And then once you like get comfortable with it and whatnot, and then you find yourself doing more projects, then go into like a ripping blade and whatnot. And like the melamine, that was a weird, like I really didn't have use for it, and now it just sits in our shopping desk because we don't really use melamine. But that thing was awesome. I mean, it didn't even chip out our melamine, and melamine chips out super easy.
So there's another blade there. I have a blade called an Ultimate Plywood and Melamine blade, and it is an 80 tooth count, and it's also it has an alternating bevel on every tooth, and it's a very, very acute angle. So as it hits the wood, it almost slices it like a knife instead of chopping at it like a blade on a cutting board, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I use that blade all the time on all my plywood cutting because plywood veneer is very, very thin. And if you cross cut with a combo blade on plywood veneer, it's going to chip out very, very bad unless you prep it first by scoring a mark with a knife or taping it with blue painter's tape, something to help prevent the tear out. If you don't have the right blade, that's your only option. But if you're cutting a lot of plywood, especially for cabinetry, it's best to get you a plywood blade or a plywood melamine blade or something that has a tooth count of roughly 80 teeth.
Yeah.
And if you're on a miter saw that's, a 12-inch miter saw, you're going to find yourself up there around 100 teeth just because there's more surface area of blade to cover all the teeth. So the higher teeth count that you get, the less tear out you're going to have. But you can't use a high tooth count for ripping, especially hardwood, because you're going to get a lot of burning. So every blade has its place.
Well, right. So if you can't wrap your head around like why you can't use a higher tooth count for rip cuts, it's generally because you have to push that blade so much slower. You can't push it through that saw fast enough to prevent that burning. And that's why they say usually, right, your cross cuts are those 60 to 80. I don't know. I know they make some 100-tooth blades. I don't know if I've ever seen a 100-tooth blade on a table saw, but I've usually seen the 80 to 100 on a miter saw, and that's because those are pretty much dedicated to cross cuts. And then the same thing is, right, you were saying you get that massive tear out. Usually, if you go with that lower blade count on those cross cuts, I would agree with Sam. Probably a good blade initial investment would be to go with that combo blade. What's your take on teeth configuration?
That's what I was just looking up, the CMT blades, because I feel like that's the middle of the line. Our Force 2 blade, I think, was over $100. But the CMTs were, they were
about like 60 or something, 60, 80. But
yeah.
The teeth configuration,
that's what I wanted to look up.
So I use what I have, my combo blade, general purpose blade is a high ATB, and that just means I don't really know what the ATB stands for, but it means your teeth angle are very steep.
It's alternating tooth bevel is
there
ATB.
You go. So the blade's good. I would prefer a flat grind blade. For one, is you can do dados and grooves with it and get that flat bottom. And especially for something like my table saw, and I'm sure Jay's table saw, that doesn't have an arbor nut long enough to put a dado blade on it, to have that flat tooth and able to get those flat bottoms is pretty important.
The Freud blades actually make it's called a glue line rip blade, and it's mainly used for ripping and making a nice straight edge that you can glue, which is, hence the name glue line rip. But it has a flat bottom bevel on the top of each tooth, except for the shoulders. They have a slight little shoulder, 45-degree chamfer on each tooth, but the very tops are flat. So if you're making dados with that particular blade, you do have to account for that slight shoulder. So if you're making a tenon to go into a dado, a mortise, or you're putting in a piece of wood into an adjacent dado, you do need to sand off the corners. And a lot of people ask me, where do they get those flat bottom grind blades? And that's the only one I know of that Freud makes, and it's not dedicated flat bottom grind.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful.
And it's that higher tooth count, so you won't necessarily be able to do everything with that.
It's pretty close to a combo. It's about 50 teeth.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, it's because I have their 40 tooth, their Premier Fusion, general purpose, whatever. And that's not, it's a combo blade, but it is a high ATB from Freud. And it's a great blade. In fact, it's still my go-to blade, just because I'm mainly like Jay over there that needs to buy blades and just doesn't do it. Just keep saying, I'll do it later, and I never do.
Still cutting.
Yeah.
It's smoking, it's all right.
What's this cleaning thing you're talking about?
Burns all right.
I was just going to say, I looked up the CMT blade that we got, and it's $42 on Amazon, and it's Prime. And it's the combo blade. It's 50 teeth.
And I think that one is actually a flat bottom grind blade. I'm pretty sure that one is.
The gullies or the gullets or whatever are deep.
Yeah, and that's the gullets are what get you your ejection for your sawdust. So the bigger the gullet, the more ejection rate you're going to have, which means you're able to push the wood through a little bit faster. And that's one thing you need to notice when you're buying blades, is that the lesser tooth count, the bigger the gullet between each tooth. So when you get up to 80 teeth, the gullet's really, really small. So your ejection rate's going to kind of suck.
Oh, yeah. It is one flat and 4 alternate teeth grind.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's usually how it is. You'll usually have every third tooth or so is usually the flat bottom. You'll have one that's a left hand bevel, one's a right hand bevel, one's a flat, and then it repeats over. So I know
that's pretty typical on a combo too.
Yeah. So that CMT makes that one. I definitely know if you want to go in the more $120 range for the woodwork, the Forest Woodworker 2, they make a flat bottom as well. I don't know if you step down into your cheaper, like your Irwin Marples, or your Diablo, which is made by Freud's, just they're a little bit cheaper line that you can pick up in your home centers. I don't know if they make a flat bottom blade, so
you're just going to have to kind of do a little bit of research when you go to buy your blades. Just check out the teeth, look at the bevels. Like Jeremy said, you might have a left, you might have a right, alternating tooth bevel, and then a combination with a flat bottom grind. Check out the gullet size, the tooth count.
We didn't talk about the curve of the blade.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, curve's another big thing. There's a full curve, and then there's a thin curve. I'm not, Jeremy, you might know this, but the exact measurement of a thin curved blade, isn't it like a 32nd?
I think it's 1/16.
A 16th difference?
Yeah. Oh, no, I think the actual blade thickness is a 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
not sure of
the
that
full
exactly.
curve is a 1/8.
Yes.
And I'm almost positive the thin curve's 1/16. I don't use a thin curve just because I can't use my riving knife with my table saw if I use a thin curve blade.
Yep.
I was just doing something and it hit that, and I was like, oh, no, I gotta it. I was like, oh, and I had to get it out and unscrew it.
Using the full curve, too, it's a lot easier to measure because it's 1/8 of an inch every time you cut. So if you've got a board that's say 24 inches and you want to make sure that you get a certain length here and a certain length here and accommodate an 1/8 inch cut in between, can you do that? When you have a 16th inch blade, it's a little bit more difficult to figure that math out. So, and people always say that a full curve blade on, say, a contractor saw that's pulling a 1 1/4 horse motor, can it handle that? Which is one reason why most people use thin curves. And I'm here to tell you that mine is a horse and a half, I think, and I always run full curve blades. And I cut Purple Heart, Walnut, Oak, and it still handles it without a problem. And one of the benefits that mine has is that if it does get into a pinch, if you're running like a 3-horse table saw and that wood starts pinching on the back of that blade, if you don't have a riving knife, it's going to grab it and send it your way.
Yeah.
The beauty of mine is if it pinches that blade, there's not enough horsepower to throw kickback at me, and it just comes to a stop. So I just grab the stop button and take it out. And that's the only downside of having a smaller motor running a full curve blade, or even a thin curve blade. I would probably run into that problem. So if you're thinking that your saw can't handle full curve blades, just get that out of your mind. I mean, it'll hold it.
All right, so I looked it up here, and this my quick research, which is about 2 websites, Tools Today and Rockler. Both say full curve is typically 1/8 of an inch. You might see slight variances, and a thin curve is described as anything less than 1/8 of an inch. Typically, 3/32 is a thin curve. So anything less than an eighth, but most of the time you're gonna find a 3/32. And it says that they were designed to use on those smaller horsepower saws. But you can get away with it. Drew, you said you use a full curve. I use a full curve, and I have a 1 1/4 horse. I just know on those thicker materials, I may either have to step down to a more aggressive tooth count, which is like the case I had to do to cut the wood for the split top Roubo. I had to step all the way back down to a 24 tooth to get aggressive enough to get those chips out. Or you have to take passes in different heights. So you may have to go, cut halfway through the wood, raise up the blade, and finish making that cut. But there is techniques to do, so you can still use that full curve blade.
Yeah, and make sure you change your zero. If you are doing zero clearance, make sure you change your plates and don't put in like the wrong one and then mess your plate up.
Yep. And if you're going to change that curve for the blade, make sure your riving knife or your splitter is the appropriate thickness. Don't go down to a thin curve and try to shove it through, and you get stuck on a full curve riving knife. But you make thin curve riving knives, it's just a little less common.
And then put that with your plate and like keep it with, because ours are like screwed to our plates, and Also, if your table saw or whatever you're working with goes to like an angle, make sure you take those like zero clearance plates off, because we've busted like 2 or 3. So that's a whole nother, like we could get into.
We can get into that later. Maybe on a short show. I don't
Another
know.
show, yeah.
Let's do one more real quick, Jeremy.
Okay.
People are always curious about all these different types of glues that they see on the shelves. Open times, Type Bond 1, 2, and 3, weatherproof, weather resistant, all of that stuff. What would you guys recommend for somebody that's starting out that they don't have to think about whenever they go shopping for a glue? Like, what's the best product? What's open times? Things of that nature. What do they look for?
I would say your best go-to glue will be a Type 2 glue. Brand-wise, I'm going to either recommend Type Bond, or one that I've really gotten to love is Gorilla Glue. They're Gorilla Wood Glue. Both are type 2. There's, I'm sure, many types, but I know of 3. Right, Type 1 is like your indoor. Don't expose it to any water because it's going to split. To a Type 2, which is water resistant. Well, you can use that on your cutting boards. Some things that will see some moisture, but not a lot. And then your Type 3s, which are your heavy outdoor glues made to withstand the elements.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say a good, like, safe alternative is a Type 2, either like Type Bond 2 or Gorilla Wood Glue. That's just because you don't have to think about it. You don't have to be like, oh man, I used the wrong glue on this cutting board. Like, I always buy Type 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side. You never know when something might accidentally see a little bit more moisture than what it's there. Generally your Type 3 glues are going to dry darker because they're usually a little bit darker of a glue. So you might have a dark glue line instead of more of a clear glue line like your Type 1s and Type 2s. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What brands do y'all use?
I use Type Bond 2, but then I also really like Gorilla Glue, but I also really like the Elmer's glue. We've had like really good luck with it. It's strong as crap like the other ones, but it actually, another thing, if you're a beginner, do not wipe your glue. Let it dry and scrape it off, because you don't want like to stain and then you see a big glue line. But I think that the Elmer's, even if you get like glue left on there, it's not as like in your face if you were doing it with something else. So I like the Elmer's. And the open time, you have like a lot of time to play with it.
Yeah. So when you say open time, she's actually referring to the time that the glue is still workable. It's not fully cured, but it's still workable, meaning it hasn't tacked up yet. And usually you get anywhere, they say on a Type 1 and 2 glue, that you usually get anywhere between like 5 to 7 minutes of like workable time. So depending on your environment, you might get 10 minutes, you might get 15. If you're in a humid climate, you're going to get a little bit more because there's more, right? The more moisture in the air keeps the evaporation, right? So glue sets because of the evaporation of the moisture outside of that glue. So like me, I used a Type Bond 2 for that split top Roubo, and I was able to get the entire half done before it completely set up. That was probably 20 minutes. But if you're somewhere out west, Arizona, Nevada, even some parts of Texas that are very dry, then that glue is going to set up a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've noticed I'll use the Type Bond 2, and then there's a local company here, Wilson Art. They do adhesives, and they've sent me a bunch of their stuff, and I even had it in my giveaway not too long ago. And I use their Type 2 primarily now. I like the Gorilla Glue. I even ran some tests with Gorilla Glue and Type Bond, and I liked Type Bond better than Gorilla Glue. But since I've got this Wilson Art, I've been using that primarily for everything.
Why did you like Type 1 2? What was your test?
I just glued 2 pieces together, and I kind of did the what's his name, Aaron from I'm trying to blank on his name now. Aaron Massey. He did a test where he stood on 2 pieces and just kind of tested them out. So I was like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
One of them stuck and one of them did.
We don't have to tell you which one. No.
I don't know. I haven't had any issues with Gorilla Glue. The only downfall that I see, and in fact, I don't know anybody else that sells it by the gallon besides Type On. And I think that's a big downfall because you can quickly spend a lot of money on glue buying those little bitty bottles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
a lot of trips to the store.
Yeah, that's what kind of keeps me going back to Type Bond. Because a gallon of Type Bond 2 in my local area is $17.53 a gallon, which is pretty good compared to like the little 16-ounce bottles, like $9 or something.
Yeah, I'm lucky with Wilson Art. I mean, they're local, so I think they're up in Waco. So I mean, the guy will say he'll send me a box of glue and it'll be here in 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Well, I'll be watching my mailbox there, Jay.
Yeah, it's some glue out there.
And if you guys are curious about if your glue is safe for food contact or indirect food contact making things like cutting boards, you will see that on the bottle, and it will say that it's FDA approved for indirect food contact.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I didn't even think about
which most Type 2 glues I think are. I know Type Bond is
Type
Gorilla
Bond
Glue.
1 is not.
No, Type Bond 2. And
Type Bond 2 is, but 3.
I don't know.
3 I'm not sure about.
And I know Elmer's is, or one of Elmer's is. So
Max is what I use. I don't use just Elmer's.
Yeah.
It's funny because
the kids' school glue.
I was just going to say a lot of my grandpas. Yeah, that would be so awesome. A lot of my grandpa's like really fine woodworker friends still use white glue. They swear by it. They will not change, and their stuff is amazing. It's so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. I will, and one more thing because we keep going into a million different things. But melamine has a special glue too, so you need to make sure you're getting melamine glue.
And Wilson Arts, they have a melamine glue, and they've sent it to me as well.
Yeah, the Type On is what I've used. It's awesome. And then we Wilson Arts. Oh, sorry.
And for those of you that think glue is because I know when I first started, I thought glue was kind of, like I didn't need it. Thought, I'll just put it, nails in there, screw it down. I have had glue outlast, my nails, or even like my cutting boards. I have tested where the glue joints are at, and I've taken the board and broke it, and the wood will break before the glue joint will.
Every time we cut like our tables off, like where we're putting that breadboard in, there's always like 2 to 3 inches. I always go oversized, way oversized. And when it drops, the glue joint does not split. It's the wood that splits before. Even on the walnut split before the glue joint. So glue is a lot stronger. Like that mantle is just made out of glue and nails. And I mean, I've made so many things like that like glue is strong. My grandpa always reminds me, glue is really, really strong. Don't forget that. It is really strong.
Modern glues are strong, and there have been projects that I make nothing but use glue. I don't even have any fasteners whatsoever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump real quick into product recommendations. Jay, you want to go first? You got something you want to recommend?
So I've been working with AWP gear a lot lately, and they sent me a work bag that I use on the day-to-day now, and it's a tough SOB. It gets thrown in the back of the work truck. I'm carrying. I've got a drill and an impact. Usually have a 4-foot level somewhere strapped to it. Boxes of screws. I mean, I've got 2 number 3s, 2 number 2 screwdrivers, some flatheads. Like it's loaded down. It's heavy. But I've been impressed over the last couple of weeks of just how it's taken the beating. It's got tons of space, tons of compartments for all of our little anchors and screws that we have to use on the daily basis. And then I got a backpack. Now, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this backpack, but I'm excited to kind of put it to the test here. But I know AWP is mostly in Lowe's, and I'm more of an HD
Yeah.
guy, but I saw it the other day and I was like, I'm going to have to come by Lowe's and check it out.
Yeah. I have the wheelless one.
Yeah, and I'm super impressed with just the toughness, because sometimes that stuff, they say it's job site ready and get on a job site and it falls apart on you. But I've been super impressed.
It's ready for that one job site.
Yeah, one job site, not every day. But I've been super impressed with the beating it's taken, because I'm not really easy on my stuff. And so I'm super happy with the strength and durability so far.
Cool.
I'm sorry about.
All right, Sam, what do you got?
I'm going to do the Gator Micro Zip. That thing is awesome, and definitely for the mantle, I used it because my client wanted it rough and not sanded. My miters maybe were just a little over, where you have to just kind of give a little touch of sand, and maybe like those little spots where you can't get your big sander in, and like your finger doesn't really, like, it hurts after a while, like trying to sand right there. So that thing is awesome, and it's like so cheap, and you can switch out the different grits. I use mine every day.
Yeah.
So thumbs up for the Gator Micro Zip.
Did Sam ever send you one, Drew?
No.
Oh, it's still.
I've got one on my bench. I could send you, Drew.
No, I have it like you and this little girl on Instagram. She's like a 13-year-old woodworker. She's a girl. She's a rock star. So I have hers and yours sitting like right next to each other.
Jay will probably send it first. I'm the best friend. Yay!
So he still has like the Stump Shops stain.
No, I couldn't send the stain to Canada. That's what it was.
Okay, well,
I tried. They said I couldn't send it.
Well, we'll see.
So, all right, Drew, what do you want to recommend?
I just got these in the mail about 2 or 3 days ago, and this company reached out to me to try them out, and they are just earmuffs, those noise cancellation earmuffs. And I've had a lot of instances where my Isotunes batteries just died. Actually, they died today. So I needed a pair of earmuffs to wear, and they sent me these, asked me to try them out. So I said, okay. And they are very low profile on the sides. Like most earmuffs, they're pretty bulky around your ears. These are very low profile. They fit super snug on your head. And they block out 34 decibels, which is pretty strong as far as noise cancellation. Most of them are around 26, 28 decibels, and these are 34. And they come in a variety of colors. I got mine in white, and the company is Pro for Show. That's SHO.
I was waiting for you to say it.
Pro for Show. And they also design them for shooting, because whenever you've got a rifle, like this, and you're looking through a scope, sometimes your ear protection hits the gun stock barrel and you can't lean your head over to get to the scope. And they make these cutouts in the very bottom to where it will fit around that gun stock.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. All right, well, I'm going to go along the same lines as you. I'm going to recommend the Isotunes Extra headphone. They're like ridiculous. It's a new product, just came out. However, I like them better than my Pros. Like the what I've put them through so far. The biggest thing I like is the little memory wire that goes around your neck. Instead of having the wire dangling off of your back. And sometimes putting the wire around your ear and trying to get that in is a little bit cumbersome. And I think the Isotunes Extra just kind of solves all those problems. Right? So you don't have, you're still missing some of the benefits of the Pro, right? You don't have as big of a battery. You lose a couple hours on that. And you lose a couple of the other features. Like maybe a little bit more in weight, a couple of grams more. But to me, I think just like the comfortability of them definitely sets them apart. So if you're looking for some Isotunes, definitely take a look at the Extra, because I think you'll be a little bit happier with them than the Pros.
Cool. Mm-hmm. I just got my Isotunes not too long ago, and I've been super happy with them in the shop for sure.
Which ones do you have?
Just the basic ones. Not the wired ones, the ones up from that.
Yeah, the originals.
Yeah, and outside of the call quality, that's been the only issue. But other than that, and I only call her, so she's the only one that counts.
So, yeah. So I haven't really looked at it, and I wonder if there's like a difference in microphone there, because like I have no like problems hearing the call quality.
Yeah,
from my pros. I haven't tested out the extras yet. I do not, and there is a downfall to at least the pros that I have. Again, I haven't really tested much with the extras because I've only had them like 2 days. But like usually if I'm mowing the grass, I'm gonna have my phone in my pocket. The connection cuts out. So, and I've really only just like if it's in my back pocket and that connection cuts out. If I move the phone in my front pocket, it's usually fine. So I don't really know where that fine line is. I know several people have that same issue of it cutting out when they're like running and trying to work out with them or whatnot. That's really like the only time I've had issues. But they definitely like working around the shop, leaving them, leaving the phone around. I would like the range maybe to be a little bit better on them, but it's a great product. It works. Not everybody needs to walk around the block and stay connected to their headphones. That's just me. I like to
Why not
walk around my house and expect my phone to stay connected. So
what you got on your phone, Sam? You look like
I'm so excited. I ordered big headphones too because I was using my pros, and then sometimes I don't want to use them. I like them, but I just don't want to use them. And look what I ordered, and it got to wait.
Don't
and
that.
Ordered Pros Faux Show. They got delivered on June 1st, and I have been wearing them, and they're awesome. They're like super comfortable.
Yep. So you didn't even know you had Pro for Show?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
That's funny, and they're not expensive. They're only like $18,
and they're really? So comfortable. Yeah.
So you can afford to have several around your shop. So if you're like set up like Sam is, where you have multiple stations, you can just hang ear protection at each station.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of important, right? So like, I have a couple pairs of ISO tunes, but I'm sorry, those are mine. I'm really not going to give them. Like, my dad comes in the shop, so I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you use them. That's kind of nasty.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of important to have some earmuffs, a good set of earmuffs in the shop for like, you know, when my son wants to come out or my wife wants to come out, and just like watch, like here's the extra set of hearing protection. So I'm going to definitely have to look into them. We'll probably pick up at least a couple pairs.
You should get a different color. I have turquoise. And you have.
Can I get hot pink?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I'll get hot pink.
I got white.
Never lose them.
So awesome. Okay, well, we would like to remind you, if you listen to our show on iTunes, to please give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach a greater audience.
Hello.
But you guys are awesome, so thanks for listening.
Have we had any ratings yet, Jeremy? Have you even checked? No.
I checked 2 weeks ago. I didn't check this time. I didn't even dawn on me.
No. It's all right. Maybe we can put it on the next show.
Yeah, have any voicemails? We probably have like 10, and we just didn't put them all.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, if we get voicemails, y'all should get them too because they go to your email.
Oh, I know.
Yep. Or you can check your voicemails and find out that you missed one that was a month old. That was me.
Yeah.
It's like, put it on the show.
So, but thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Juan or Jay, you go by Jay mainly, but for those of the people that are listening to the show, if they've never heard of you before, how can they go about following you and getting in contact with you if they want to get in touch?
The best way would be on Instagram at DiModetta_ATX. That has all my information there, email, no website, Facebook, YouTube. It's all there. Instagram is the best way. That's a main driver. Yeah. DiModetta_ATX.
There you go. All right. Well, Sam, since you're sitting right there, what's a good way to get a hold of you?
On Instagram is the best right now because as always. My website is still getting worked on. But it's Samrine_designs. You guys can send me stuff on there. But the best it would be to go to there and then email me if you have a really important question.
All right, Jeremy?
Find me on my website, countrysideworkshop.com, or you can find me on primarily Instagram nowadays, and that's Countryside Workshop.
Okay, and you can find info on countrysideworkshop.com about the podcast as well. But if you want to get in contact with me, you can go to rhwoodshop.com, and all my contact info is there. Instagram, I'm pretty active on. YouTube, I've kind of slacked off on a little bit. But if you comment, I'll still give you some kickback. You can go to the email for the podcast and send us information directly, and that's the email of kickback@woodshop101podcast.com. We also have the voicemail number of 409-234-3959. Also, if you have the voice memo app on your phone, you can record a voice memo there and send it to the email. It's a lot higher definition quality type of recording, and those do sound better on air. But if you have any questions, concerns, whatever, drop us a line. We'd love to hear it.
Yep.
So we want to thank Jay for being on the show. Thank you guys very much for the feedback that you guys are giving. And I know that Jay had a good time. He had a smile on his face the whole time.
I was having a good time with you guys.
So
finally, a guest host that enjoys coming on.
Well, I don't know. When we hang up, he's going to be like, "Oh God, finally!"
No way, man. This is 2 times for me. I love it.
Well, thanks for coming on, Jay. We appreciate it. And if you guys have any information, be sure and reach out to us. So from Jay, Sam, Jeremy, and myself, we want to wish you guys well. Please be safe in your shops, and we will talk to you on the next podcast episode. So 1, 2, 3, boom!